What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today we need to be taking a look at Wasp. Yeah, that's right, Fantasy Flight Games have gone and done the reveal of Wasp for the Marvel Living Card game, Marvel Champion, so I figured, it's probably only fair that we go and take a look at Wasp. Now, Wasp is one of these characters we saw before is actually a three-sided character. So you've got your alter ego form, and instead of just your general hero form, we got tiny hero form and giant hero form. And this will be on a card where essentially you've got a normal size card, which is Tiny Wasp on one side and Nadia Vandyne on the other, and that unfolds into a giant size card, which is your giant Wasp. Nice. Now, if we start off with Nadia Vandyne, what we've got here is hand size of 6, hit points of 11, recovery of 3, all of which is incredibly standard. That's about what we expect. But she's got the girl action. Shuffle up to 2 cards of a printed science resource from your discard pile into your deck. And essentially, this just lets you reuse your best cards over and over again. And as you get later in the game, and your deck gets lower and lower and lower, and there are fewer and fewer cards in there, this gets better and better and better as a skill. Because not only are you putting cards that you want back into your deck, but you're also making sure that you can draw into them more quickly, because with fewer cards in your deck, it is going to be easier to actually go ahead and find them. So that's kind of awesome. Tiny Wasp, you've got 1 thwart, 1 attack, 2 defense, which is quite low if I'm honest. Defense is alright, but that's about it. Hand size of 5, hit points of 11 is standard. And after Wasp, or an event you play, defeats a minion or side scheme, you deal 1 damage to the villain. I really like this. Firstly, you can time this. A lot of time you know when you're going to be able to defeat a minion or villain, or side scheme, so you know when you can actually get here to do extra damage to the villain, which is awesome. But you do have an attack of 1, so you're not always going to want to be in this form when you're attacking, but certainly if you're playing an event to defeat a side scheme or a minion, this is going to be it. Again, you've got low thwart and low attack, so your natural, your basic powers are unlikely to be doing it that often to be actually making the difference. But then again, there will be those times where they will, and on those times, this is a form you're going to want to be in. Moving over to Giant, we've got 2 thwart, 2 attack, so obviously you're going to be able to take stuff down more easily here. And you've got 3 defense, so clearly this is the stats side of Wasp. You've got the same hand size of 5, hit points of 11. And there's no skill here per se, but both thwart and attack can be divided among schemes as you like. So if you've got, let's say you've only got the 2 thwart, and let's say there's a side scheme with 1 threat on remaining, take that off and 1 of the main scheme. Deal the last damage you need to a minion and do a damage to the villain, etc. There is going to be a question of you've got that awesome skill for defeating side schemes and minions in tiny form, but hero form actually lets you spread that thwart and that damage around while having a higher value. But it just gives you options, and that makes me kinda happy if I'm honest with you. Now, if we have a look at some of the other cards that we've been seeing with Wasp, we've got Giant Help, which yes, has a science resource. It is a 2-cost event, and there's a hero action that removes 3 threat from a scheme. Or if you're in Giant Hero form, 4 threat divided among schemes as you choose instead. So like your giant form skill here, it doesn't all have to be from one scheme. You can spread it around a little bit, which can be absolutely huge. And 2 cost to get rid of 4 threat is pretty good. 2 cost to drop 3 threat in tiny mode, fine. But when you're in giant mode, this is a really good card. There are plenty of side schemes out there that have 2 or 3 threat. So being able to defeat them and take some off the main scheme is kind of redonk. Pinpoint Strike also has a science resource, would you look at that? And it's got a hero attack that deals 7 damage to an enemy, which is pretty good for 3 cost. But if you're in tiny hero form, you do 8 damage and it gains overkill. So if you use this to take down a minion, any excess damage will go on to the villain. So if you've got a 4 health minion, or a minion with 4 health remaining, you deal 8 damage, 4 goes on to the minion, but the remaining 4 overkills and goes on to the villain. That is kind of awesome. And clearly what we've got here are cards that are rewarding you for being in a particular form, which kind of has to happen. If they're going to give you 2 different forms, it really is in the card designer's interest to make things a bit more fun, a bit more interesting by giving you cards that reward both the different forms to make you flick between them as you like. Now, Swarm Tactics is a card we've seen before. It is one of these new team-up cards. It is a 1-cost event, and it changes you to your other hero form and lets you ready your hero. Now, this is from tiny to giant or giant to tiny. It does not flick from or to your alter ego form. It essentially lets you flip twice during your turn, which can be huge because you might be in alter ego mode. Your flip for the turn, you flip into tiny mode to play a card like the aforementioned pinpoint strike, but then you use this to flip into giant mode for your attack for the turn. Now, one thing that is important to note, both AntMan and Wasp, and they did confirm this in the article, have to be visible on the table in order to play this card. They've both got to be in play at the time, but they have confirmed that your signature ally is AntMan, so even if you're not playing a 2-player game where 1 player is AntMan and 1 player is Wasp, you can still play this card as long as you've got your AntMan ally in play. We have not seen the AntMan ally, incidentally, which is a little bit sad. We have, however, seen some aggression cards. Out of the box, Wasp is an aggression character, though you can obviously switch this out if you so choose. We've got 4, though this is Jane Foster, so this could be on the table at the same time as the Odin Son 4 that came as his own hero pack. That would be allowed. 1 fort taking 1 damage is not great, but 2 attack taking 1 damage is quite good. 4 health, 4 cost is fine. Although it is quite expensive on the face of it. I mean, if you're drawing 5 cards and you don't get any double resource cards, your entire turn would be dropping the 4 other cards in your hand to play this. But after you play 4 from your hand, you deal 2 damage to the villain. But if you paid using any physical resources, and it doesn't say only, it just says A, so it could be 1 physical resource and any others, you deal 3 damage instead. So there's nothing else about 4 which is amazing, but if I'm paying 4 cost and I'm getting 4 uses, dealing 2 damage each, and I'm dropping 3 damage when I play 4, then over the course of a few turns I'm going to be dropping 11 damage total. I'm kind of alright with this. 3 extra damage on the villain is kind of awesome, and if you're then going to give me an ally which can attack 4 times for 2 damage, or block at some point or whatever, yeah, I'm kind of in on that. That seems good to me. Surprise Attack is a 1-cost aggression event, and after you change form, you deal 3 damage to an enemy, but 4 damage instead if you used a physical resource, and again it says A, not only. So you're talking a 1-cost event to deal 4 damage. That's pretty good. I'm kind of alright with this. And then we've got Lie in Wait, another aggression card. It is a 1-cost upgrade that is limited to 1 per player. But after a minion engages you, you discard Lie in Wait and deal 3 damage to that minion. And this can be absolutely huge. Yeah, fine, sure, there's plenty of minions out there that have more. But by that same token, there's plenty of minions out there that have 3 or less health. So they engage you and you immediately KO them with Lie in Wait. This seems, I mean, it's very reminiscent of Black Widow and setting up so when something happens, you've got the answer already ready. I like Lie in Wait. This seems like a very cool card for taking out minions before they can become a problem. Now, we were also shown a lovely little collage of photos here, and there are a couple which are actually new and we've not seen anywhere else, which is quite nice. Biosynthetic Wings does look a little bit broken. It's a 2-cost Wasp upgrade, gives Wasp the aerial trait, but when you would take any amount of damage, if you're in tiny hero form, You exhaust biosynthetic wings and prevent that damage. You have to exhaust it, so you can only do this once during the villain phase, but that's redonkulous. Now, it does say exhaust, not you may, so I'm waiting on a ruling of whether you can actually prevent, basically wait till the bigger amount of damage here. But the fact that you can, if you stay in tiny form, prevent some damage really is kind of over the top, and this is one of my favourite cards I've seen. This is a bit nuts. Now, the other one we've got here is Wasp Sting, a 2-cost event. If you are in giant hero form, you deal a total of 4 damage, divided among enemies as you choose. If you're in tiny form, you deal 5 damage to an enemy. So you deal more damage in tiny form, but you get to spread it around enemies if you are in giant form, and we've already talked about how good that could be. All for One is a 2-cost leadership event. That is obviously one of the extra cards that comes in the pack for deck building. It's not going to be in Wasp's out-of-the-box deck, because Wasp out of the box does not play leadership. And the lovely folks over at Hall of Heroes have given us a look at, well, it's not much, but it's a little montage here of the Nemesis, and the Nemesis minion here is Beetle. Now, the side scheme we do have a look at, it's Mother's Orders, starts with 2 threat on, and as an additional cost for each hero to make a basic attack, that hero must spend 1 resource of any type. So it's not hard to defeat, it's only a 2 threat when it comes out, but you've got to spend 1 resource in order to actually be able to attack while it's out. So this is one of those ones where, and it is only a basic attack, not an event attack, etc. There will be some times you can actually avoid this because you just don't need to attack, but most of the time this is going to be a takedown ASAP. There is Beetle Armor Mark IV, though we don't have much of a look at that at all. And then we got Beetle, the minion, which is 1 scheme, 1 attack, 4 health, none of which is particularly impressive in terms of stats. So it's one of those where we do really need to see the skills, because as it stands at the moment, I'm really not terribly worried about Beetle, but it may well be that there's more to see, which makes it a lot more imposing. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen, that is Wasp, that is what we know right now. Obviously, as we know more in the future, I will show you, and when this pack releases, I will play a whole bunch of games with it, and I will bring you a nice thorough review, because that's kind of what I do here. But for now, I want to know your first reactions of Wasp. I'm kind of excited. I like being forced to flick between modes, and I do like aggression as a player, not just in Marvel Champions, in card games generally, so I am optimistic about this set. This set seems kind of fun, but I'd like to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk Marvel Champions and a bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.